I mean, how can we test it and measure these kinds of things? I don't know, but watching and seeing how people's lives change and how they,
Yeah.
interact with the world differently, is pretty mind blowing. I know that this laser, one of my favorite ways to use it is to help clear emotional charge from past trauma. So if you do think back to something and it still makes you sad, and you can feel your energy field go whoa,
Mm.
or it still pisses you off and you get really electric and you feel how like fiery you get just thinking about it, being
Yeah.
able to use the laser and letting yourself go back to that memory and feeling that feeling, this laser can help neutralize the charge from that trauma. And so the more that you can be neutral and not triggered by things that are going on in your outside, or your own thoughts,
Mm.
then that can help coherent conserve energy when you're not bending on all emotional things. So sometimes I like to use it if I'm going to meditate, because my mind will either go into the past, but this also works into the future too. So if you're thinking about something that hasn't even happened and you're getting anxious about what about this thing, then holding that laser and letting that neutralize that charge, so that you're like, okay, well, I guess we'll figure it out once we get there. Or you can at least think about this thing in the future from a neutral space, rather than this kind of anxious, electric, uh, chaotic field. You want to bring that, when your body or your system goes into that state, bringing in this coherent green centering. It's not polarized. It's not that those hot red, orange, yellows, and it's not the cold blue, indigo, violets. It's that happy Goldilocks, middle of the spectrum. So that's one of my favorite ways to use it, is for emotional trauma, because then if something similar were to happen, instead of getting re-triggered, and you're like, now this thing that's happening and that's reminds you of an old trauma, if your old trauma is neutral, then you can be looking at this thing that's happening and you don't feel phased by it. You
Move
feel
on.
neutral. Like,
Yeah.
thing is happening, you're like, oh, look at me. I don't even feel charged by that. Like, the number of times that has happened to me where I'm like, I would have totally lost it, you know,
Yeah.
before. If somebody were to have said this or did this to me, I would have lost it. But now look at me, this is happening, and I'm totally like neutral about it. So it's a way to conserve your energy so that you're not spending it, especially with, mental
Yeah.
emotional things just kind of spin around in